So next in our discussion is, we talked about solid, liquid, gas, and we are going to talk about fluids in great detail in this course. I told you that they are all made up of molecules and that they all have velocities. If you take typical matter, that's a lot of molecules to talk about. Like we are thinking about, you take 1 gram of a substance, not even a gram, even if you take a microgram or a milligram, you are dealing with molecules that are about 10 power 25 in number. So if you talk about tracking their velocities and their positions, that's a lot of molecules to keep track of. Okay, it's not easy, neither is it not necessary. It's not also not necessary, because there is a simpler way to describe matter, and that's what comes to our rescue, and it's called the continuum framework of analysis. What do I mean by that? Okay, if I take a tiny volume, okay, think of a substance like water. Think water. Water has a density of around 1000 kilograms per meter cube, which means every meter cube of water weighs the 1000 kilograms. So if I choose a volume of water, and if I choose it to be 1 meter cube, that's a lot of molecules. Okay, it's a lot of molecules. Now just let me keep reducing this volume. If I go from 1 meter cube to 1 centimeter cube, 1 centimeter cube is still a lot of molecules that you have in 1 centimeter cube. If you to put this in context for you, the density is 1000 kilograms. The molecular weight of water is 0.018 kilograms per mole. Okay, and each mole, 1 mole contains 6.023 times 10 power 23 number in each mole. Mole is like a unit used in chemistry to denote the number of molecules, and this many collection of molecules is referred to as 1 mole, and 1 mole weighs 0.018 kilograms. So if I take 1 meter cube of water, it weighs 1000 kilograms and contains 1000 divided by 0.018 multiplied by 6.023 times 10 power 23 molecules. Just imagine that number. 1 meter cube of water contains 1 meter cube of water contains, even if I make this a very crude calculation, there are 3 zeros here, there are 2 zeros here, there is 10 power 23, this is about 10 power 28 molecules. It's a very crude calculation, but that's an astronomically large number. Okay, 1 meter cube of water contains these many molecules. So I'm just going to take that and run with it, 10 power 28 molecules. If I go from 1 meter cube to 1 centimeter cube, okay, that is a factor of a million. This is a million times smaller. That would still be 10 power 22 molecules. Still a very large number. Okay, still a very large number. I need to go about 10 power 21 times to reach a number that's like 10 molecules. What I'm saying is, from 1 centimeter cube, I need to shrink down to such a small volume that's 10 power 21 times smaller in order to capture a volume in which there are about 10 molecules. Okay, now why do I do this exercise? Why am I worried about how many molecules are there in each volume? The reason I am worried is because if I were to count if I were to calculate the density of water or density of some liquid or some fluid, it could be gas too. If I have to calculate the density of water, suppose you do density calculation by counting the number of molecules. So density, if you want, you may calculate it by counting the number of water molecules in that volume multiplied by the mass of each molecule divided by the volume. Okay, mass per volume, that's density elementary definition. Okay, you can't say I don't understand this. This is counting number of objects multiplied by the mass of each object divided by the density in which they are contained. Okay, so you have, in this case, 1 meter cube, you have these many number of molecules. You count that and divide it, you get the density. Okay, you keep coming down in size, 1 meter cube, 1 centimeter cube, 1 millimeter cube. You keep going down in size till you reach a volume where there are about 10 molecules. Okay, and it's not that they have exactly 10 molecules. Why? Because the molecules are not at rest. They are continuously moving. It's like if this room is if this room is this volume, there are 10 people that are randomly coming and going into this room. So if I were to calculate the density of water, this number n is no longer like a steady number. One instance it could be 5, other instance it could be 14, it could be 8, it could be 22. It's something that's about 10. Okay, so if you start from a large volume like 1 meter cube, you go down to 1 centimeter cube and maybe even 1 millimeter cube, and you keep going down. At some point you reach a length or you reach a size for this little volume V where your counting becomes uncertain. You reach a point where your counting becomes uncertain. Okay, so beyond V, to the right of V, your density is like a nice steady value. You can repeat this exercise for any size of V, 1 millimeter cube, centimeter cube, meter cube, you will get the same density. But once you reach that threshold where n itself becomes uncertain, what you are having is huge fluctuations in the density that you calculate. Why? Because this instance it could be 5 molecules in this volume, next instance it could be 14 molecules. It's not steady, it's not reliable. If it's not reliable, then you don't want to use the concept of density below this volume V. That is, if you shrink your point of view, the volume that you zoom in with your mind or with a camera, if you shrink it down to such a small volume that there are not enough molecules in there, then you don't want to use the density calculated with that volume, because density itself is an average calculation. It's like saying, what is the average mass contained in every volume? That's what density is really about. So density itself is applicable as a concept only to the right of that volume. Density is applicable as a right to the right of that volume, and to the left you don't have, and to the left you have a breakdown in the smoothness of density. To the left of that volume, that critical volume, you have a breakdown in the smoothness of density. To the right of it, it doesn't matter what your sample size is. This is really a sample size. To the right of it, no matter how big your sample is, you will have the same density calculated. To the left of it, you are now going to have sample sizes affecting your density value. Okay, this framework that I talk about, this framework, continuum framework of analysis, is based on the assumption that our volumes of interest contain enough molecules all the time so that a continuous, I'll write it, so that a spatially continuous function can be used to represent density, not only density, and other properties of the fluid, other properties of the fluid. I'll tell you what those other properties are. A continuum framework is based on the premise that our volumes, if you are thinking of a pipe flow, we are just implicitly saying that your volumes of interest are at least big enough that they contain enough number of molecules so that you don't have to worry about this fluctuating region. Okay, that's what we mean by the continuum framework of analysis. So density is mass per volume. You have enough molecules in a volume, you can calculate density. Okay. Now, if I ask you the question, what is the velocity of a fluid? What is your answer, or what is your thinking? When I am referring to the sentence, or when I am referring to, I'm going to erase this. When I am referring to velocity of a fluid at a given point, so if I have like a, let's say I'm thinking of a pipe flow. Here's a pipe, fluid is flowing here, and at this point I have a certain density, and I am asking you, the fluid is flowing with a velocity v pointed this way. What do we mean by that? Well, if you are looking at this as an observer, suppose you can observe the fluid move and you are at rest, you are going to say, if I put like a little leaf here, that leaf would have moved a certain distance L in a certain time t, and v is really L, or the speed is really the distance traveled divided by the time taken. Like you put a little leaf here, that leaf moves a certain distance, and you can keep a stop clock and measure the time it takes to move from 1 to 2. That L divided by delta t is your speed, and since it is in this direction, you can call it as the velocity of the fluid at that point, or between those 2 points. Now what does this velocity really represent? Now I told you from molecular point of view, all the molecules are moving randomly. Okay, you have a fluid that's moving with a velocity v. You know that they are made up of molecules. That's always true. There is no situation there. There is not. It's not true. If you contrast this versus a liquid that is in a container that is at rest, meaning its velocity is 0. In this situation, you still have molecules and they still are moving around. What is the difference between a flowing fluid and a fluid at rest? So this would be a flowing fluid, this would be a fluid at rest. Both are made up of molecules that are in constant motion. I'll just write it here. Both are made up of molecules that are in constant motion, meaning they all have velocities. Okay. The difference is, in this fluid that is at rest, the molecules are all moving randomly. Statistically, for every molecule that's moving this way, there is a molecule that is moving the other way, such that the velocities cancel out. That is, if I compute the velocity, the summation of the velocities over all the molecules, okay, this summation adds up to more or less 0. That is, I have a bunch of random people moving here randomly. Their velocities are such that if you sum them up vectorially, they all add up to something very, very close to 0. Okay? So it's like saying the molecules are all moving, but they are not going anywhere. They are all moving, but they are not going anywhere, and that's why they are at rest. A flowing fluid, on the other hand, if I zoom in and draw what's happening in this little volume, these molecules are still having their random velocities because they all have some kinetic energy that comes with them inherently. That's the nature of matter. In addition to their random velocity, they all have a common component. They all have a component that is equal to L over T. That is, they are all moving randomly, and they also have some direction to their motion. So as a result, if you compute this velocity, in this case, if you compute the velocity of each molecule, the velocity of each molecule contains a random component, which I'll write ui random, and a bulk component, which is equal to L over delta T, that you can measure just by looking at it from a distance. Like as an external observer, you can't see all the molecules obviously. You will just see that a leaf moved from here to here. This part here, if I split this part here is approximately 0, just like this part. On an average, their velocities all cancel out because it's statistical. But this part, the next part here, is just sum of n times u bar. It's just, all the molecules have this in common, so you just write n multiplied by u bar. Okay? So when we talk about the velocity, what we are really referring to is the average velocity of all the molecules at that point. It's the average velocity of all the molecules at that point. Since we already went into the continuum framework, we assume that the density at that point is defined. There are enough molecules to make up a density, and those enough molecules, their average velocity is what we call as velocity. It's sometimes, to distinguish, we say macroscopic velocity as the average velocity, and whatever the velocity of the individual molecules, we call them molecular velocities. Okay, it's the molecular velocities. So these all would be molecular velocities. Molecular velocities. So if I compute V bar, the average velocity, that would be 1 over n sum of all the molecular velocities, okay, for a fluid at rest. This term is 0. The sigma Vi is 0. We argued that, which makes V bar to be 0. For a fluid in motion, again this part is 0. You have n times u bar. Your velocity equals to the macroscopic velocity, which is equal to L divided by delta T. So what we are really saying is, in the continuum framework, we saw that density is defined at every point. It's a smooth function of space. Okay, so I am going to erase this to make space. In the continuum framework, we talk about density, velocity. We can also, same arguments we can apply it for a quantity like temperature. We can talk about internal energy is temperature. We can talk about concentration. All these functions, they are all assumed to be continuous functions of space, x, y, z, r theta phi or r theta z. They are continuous functions of space, and that they are defined at every point. That's what continuous means. And we refer to these not as density at a point. If you want to refer to the density at every point in that flow or in that domain, you call it as a field. So you refer to a density field, a velocity field, a temperature field, a concentration field. So like what I mean is, rho defined at x, y, z at a particular time, velocity we can talk about velocity at x, y, z at a particular time. You can talk about temperature x, y, z at a particular time. Even though we haven't seen it yet, you can also add pressure to that list. Pressure x, y, z at a particular time. You can also add stress, shear stress or normal stress. So we can write shear stress as a function of space at a particular time. So these are all field variables used to describe fluid behavior. We talk about velocity of a fluid, temperature of a fluid at a particular time, at a particular space, temperature, pressure, shear stress. Okay? So we will use these concepts within the broad picture of continuum framework, or in other words, in this course we will only deal with situations that will obey the continuum framework, and we talk about the velocity, temperature, pressure at different points in space. I'll also add density. Okay, so this is the template, or this is the canvas on which we are going to study.